You beat your emotions the moment you stop letting them run your day. Think about this for a second. How many times have your emotions pushed you into reactions you didn't plan? Maybe you snapped when you didn't want to. Maybe you shut down even though you needed to speak up. Or maybe you spent hours overthinking something that wasn't even a real problem. Most people feel stuck in these patterns, but they never learn what's actually happening inside them. This video is made for you if you want real control, not temporary relief. You will learn how your emotions rise, how they influence your choices, and how you can take back the lead with clear steps you can use today. No complicated theory, no confusing language, just practical psychology you can apply in real life. If you want to feel lighter, calmer, and more in control of yourself, stay with me. This might be the turning point you've been needing, your guide to beating your emotions with confidence and clarity. Number 1, interrupt emotional pressure by asking what you need. In every room where people gather, you can feel something they often ignore. There is emotional pressure sitting on their shoulders. You can see it in their eyes and hear it in the way they breathe. Many people move through the day without stopping to check what they need. They react fast. They feel pushed by stress. They feel pulled by fear. They feel overwhelmed by a problem or a memory or a worry about tomorrow. They keep going without pausing, and soon the pressure grows stronger than their ability to guide it. This is where many lives take a wrong turn. Not because people are weak, but because they never learn to interrupt emotional pressure at the right moment. There's a turning point waiting inside every person. It appears in the small space between feeling something and acting on it. That space is often ignored. In that space, you can reclaim your voice. In that space, you can slow down emotional pressure before it gains control. And the way to do it is simple. Ask one question: what do I need right now? The world moves fast, but the human mind responds well to clarity. The moment you ask what you need, you interrupt the emotional wave before it pulls you away from your purpose. There is something powerful about stopping for a moment. Picture yourself sitting alone after a long day. Your heart feels heavy. Your shoulders feel tight. Your mind jumps from one thought to another. Most people try to push through it, hoping the feeling will fade. But emotions rarely fade when ignored. They gather strength. They shape your next decision. They push you toward words you did not plan to say, or actions you did not plan to take. But when you pause and ask what you need, you bring your awareness back into your own hands. That question works because it shifts your attention from the problem to the solution. It turns a clouded moment into a clear one. Human emotions are not an enemy. They are signals. They are trying to show you something. When anger rises, it may be telling you that a value was crossed. When sadness appears, it may be telling you that something important needs care. When fear shows up, it may be telling you that you need safety or preparation. Emotions speak in sensations. Heat in your chest, tightness in your throat, shaking in your hands. When you feel these things, you can pause and ask what you need. That simple question breaks the automatic chain. It puts you back in control. Think of a moment when someone spoke sharply to you. Your body reacted, your face warmed, your breath grew shallow. Most people snap back without thinking, but a strong person pauses inside that heat and asks what they need. Maybe they need space. Maybe they need to understand the situation. Maybe they need to calm their breathing. Maybe they need to express their boundaries. That pause changes everything. It saves relationships. It protects your peace. It strengthens your ability to guide your own behavior. Many think strength comes from never feeling emotional pressure. That belief has damaged many lives. Real strength comes from knowing how to respond when pressure arrives. When you ask what you need, you step out of emotional survival mode. You step into emotional leadership. You take the wheel of your own mind. You become a person who acts instead of reacts. You become someone who builds steady control instead of being moved around by the moment. Picture a person waking up already tense from yesterday. They rush through their morning. Their mind spins. They push down their discomfort. By noon, the emotional pressure is strong. They speak in a tone they regret. They make a choice they wish they could take back. This does not happen because they are flawed. It happens because they did not stop early enough to ask what they needed. Maybe they needed rest. Maybe they needed a slow breath. Maybe they needed to organize their thoughts. Maybe they needed to talk to someone. The question opens the door to many solutions. There is a calmness that grows inside people who practice this daily. They begin to notice emotional pressure sooner. They no longer reach the point where feelings control every move. They gain a sense of inner order. When you ask what you need, you strengthen that order. You give yourself respect. You honor your mental and emotional state. That is a gift many people never give themselves. In moments of stress, the human nervous system becomes loud. The heart beats faster. The stomach tightens. The muscles tense. These sensations try to tell you that something needs attention. If you rush past them, they grow louder. If you pause and ask what you need, they soften. They respond to awareness. They respond to care. They respond to your willingness to guide the moment instead of letting it guide you. Many people fear pausing because they think it will slow their progress. But pausing does not slow progress. It protects progress. It prevents the emotional storms that waste time, energy, and relationships. When you ask what you need, you are investing in the next hour. You are shaping the next conversation. You are preparing yourself to think with strength instead of panic. Some people avoid this question because they are afraid of the answer. They worry that admitting their needs will make them weak. But nothing is more powerful than a person who knows their needs and takes charge of them. A person who understands their emotional pressure becomes reliable, steady, and trusted. A person who refuses to look inward becomes unpredictable. One simple question creates the difference. You may stand in a busy world with demands pulling at you from every side. You may feel the pressure of expectations from others. You may carry responsibilities that stretch you thin. Emotional pressure will appear again and again. But each time you pause and ask what you need, you build a habit of strength. Over time, you train your mind to respond with calm instead of chaos. You train your emotions to follow your direction instead of trapping you. Imagine yourself in a moment of conflict. Someone raises their voice. You feel heat in your face. Instead of reacting, you silently ask what you need. Maybe you need to stay quiet for a moment. Maybe you need to speak in a steady tone. Maybe you need to give the situation a short break. This simple question becomes a tool that protects your dignity. It protects your ability to think. It protects your long-term goals. Think of a moment when fear held you back. Your chest felt tight. Your mind imagined the worst outcome. Instead of escaping the situation, you could ask what you need. Maybe you need reassurance. Maybe you need preparation. Fear loses power when you ask that question. Fear grows when you ignore it. There is something deeply human about honoring your needs. Emotional pressure becomes manageable not by force, but by attention. You are not meant to carry every feeling alone. You are meant to guide it. And the first step is always the same. Ask what you need, then answer with honesty, then act on that answer with courage. When this becomes a daily habit, your mind grows sharper, your relationships grow healthier, your decisions grow wiser. You gain a stronger sense of yourself. Emotional pressure still appears, but it no longer rules you. You rule it. And that is how a person builds a life with strength, direction, and calm. Number 2, correct distorted thoughts to ease emotional weight. Many people carry a kind of emotional weight that does not come from real events, but from the thoughts they built around those events. A single moment can turn heavy when the mind shapes it into something bigger than it is. The human mind is powerful, but it can also distort things without you noticing. It can turn a small mistake into a sign of failure. It can turn an uncertain situation into a disaster in your imagination. It can take someone's silence and twist it into rejection. These distorted thoughts add pressure that your life does not need. When you learn to correct these thoughts, you lighten the emotional load that has been draining your energy for years. Imagine waking up and your first thought is that the day will be hard. Nothing has happened yet, but your mind has already placed a weight on your chest. That weight affects how you move, how you speak, and how you make choices. Many do not question these early thoughts. They accept them as true. But emotional freedom begins when you understand that not every thought you think is real. Some are shaped by fear, some by old experiences, some by insecurity. When you correct these thoughts, your emotional state shifts almost instantly. Consider how often your mind jumps to the worst outcome. Someone does not answer a message, and your mind assumes they are upset with you. A project gets delayed, and your mind decides it will collapse completely. A new challenge appears, and you tell yourself you are not ready. These thoughts feel real because they appear fast and with intensity. But intensity does not equal truth. When you pause and question these thoughts, you weaken the emotional weight behind them. You create space to see the situation more clearly. Think about a moment when someone gave you feedback. Instead of hearing guidance, your mind may have turned it into criticism. It may have told you that you are not good enough, or that you disappointed someone. This shift happens quietly and quickly. But the emotional reaction that follows can last hours or days. When you correct the distorted thought, you reduce the emotional burden. Instead of assuming the worst, you can ask what the person is truly saying. You can separate your worth from the feedback. You can see the message instead of adding extra meaning. Many people believe their thoughts are facts. This belief creates unnecessary suffering. A thought is only a thought. It becomes powerful when you accept it without questioning it. Emotional weight grows heavier when thoughts go unchallenged. You break this cycle by slowing down and examining your mind's conclusion. You can ask yourself if the situation is as bad as your mind suggests. You can check if there is evidence for the thought, or if it is driven by fear or memory. You can explore other possible explanations instead of settling for the darkest one. When you correct distorted thoughts, you reduce emotional pressure because your body responds differently. The mind and body communicate constantly. When your mind imagines danger, your body reacts with tension and stress, even when nothing is happening. Your heartbeat changes. Your muscles tighten. Your breath becomes shorter. When you adjust the thought, your body softens. Emotional weight lifts because your mind is no longer creating unnecessary alarms. Think of a moment when you assumed people were judging you. Maybe you were in a room full of strangers. Maybe you were starting something new. Your mind may have filled the silence with imagined opinions. This type of distortion can freeze your confidence. But when you correct the thought, you realize that people are focused on their own lives. They are not measuring your every move. This correction frees you from emotional pressure that did not belong to you in the first place. Another distortion appears when people blame themselves for everything that goes wrong. A setback happens, and the mind turns it into a sign of personal failure. This thinking pattern builds emotional weight because it removes the ability to see the situation with balance. When you correct the thought, you acknowledge what is yours and what is not. You recognize that some events are shaped by timing, circumstances, or other people's decisions. This honest view reduces unnecessary guilt and restores emotional strength. There is a distortion where the mind exaggerates flaws and ignores strengths. A person may achieve something valuable and still focus only on the one part that went imperfectly. This creates emotional heaviness because the mind highlights the negative and hides the positive. When you correct the thought, you shift your attention to the full picture. You give yourself credit. You recognize progress. This correction improves your emotional state because you stop attacking yourself mentally. When pressure builds inside you, it is usually not from the situation, but from the story your mind created. When you learn to correct distorted thoughts, you reshape your emotional world. You become someone who responds with clarity instead of reacting from fear. You become someone who can face challenges without collapsing under imagined burdens. You create mental space to think, choose, and act. The human mind likes familiar patterns, even when those patterns cause harm. If you grew up hearing criticism, you may assume criticism everywhere. If you live through uncertainty, you may imagine uncertainty in every step. These patterns become automatic, but they are not permanent. When you correct distorted thoughts consistently, your mind learns a new pattern. It starts offering more balanced interpretations. It stops jumping to extreme conclusions. This practice builds emotional strength because your mind becomes an ally instead of a source of pressure. Consider a person who believes they are always being judged. This belief shapes their posture, their voice, their decisions. It creates social anxiety and emotional exhaustion. But when they question the thought, they realize it has no solid foundation. They begin to test new ways of seeing themselves. Emotional weight lifts because the belief loses power. This is what happens when distorted thoughts are corrected. Your emotional world becomes lighter, clearer, and more manageable. Some distorted thoughts say you must be perfect to be accepted. This creates emotional tension in every task. But when you correct the thought, you understand that perfection is not required. What matters is honesty, effort, and growth. This correction removes a heavy pressure and replaces it with a sense of progress. Another distortion tells you that if one thing goes wrong, everything will fall apart. This creates panic and stress. But when you correct the thought, you see that one trouble does not define the entire path. Emotional weight eases because your mind stops turning one step into the whole journey. Correcting distorted thoughts does not mean ignoring reality. It means seeing reality more accurately. It means refusing to let fear exaggerate everything. It means refusing to let old wounds shape new situations. It means choosing clarity over confusion and balance over extremes. When you practice this daily, your emotional life becomes stronger. You become more patient with yourself. You become more resilient. You gain a sense of control. Emotional pressure no longer overwhelms you because your thoughts no longer feed it. You become someone who notices a distorted thought and adjusts it, instead of letting it influence your behavior. As you keep correcting your thoughts, you begin to trust yourself more. You do not crumble under stress the way you used to. You do not carry unnecessary weight. You do not react to imagined dangers. You walk with steadiness. You make choices based on facts instead of fear. This is how emotional freedom grows. It grows each time you correct a distorted thought and ease the emotional weight that once held you back. Number 3, study your triggers to prevent emotional spikes. Many people try to control their emotions only after they explode. They wait until the moment is already tense. The heart is already racing and the mind is already clouded. By then, it becomes hard to think clearly or choose wisely. The key to preventing emotional spikes is not found at the end of the reaction, but at the beginning. It starts with understanding what sets you off. Every person carries a set of emotional triggers shaped by past experiences, personal expectations, and silent fears. When you study these triggers, you gain insight into why you react the way you do, and you remove the element of surprise that often causes emotional overwhelm. Every person has moments that pull a stronger raker than expected. Maybe someone raises their voice. Maybe someone questions your ability. Maybe a certain tone makes you feel dismissed. These reactions do not come out of nowhere. They are connected to something inside you that has not been acknowledged. When you notice your emotional spikes, you can follow the thread back to the trigger. The trigger might be small, but its meaning to you is big. Understanding it gives you control that many people never experience. Think about a time when someone interrupted you while you were speaking. Your chest tightened quickly. You felt irritation growing. That spike did not happen because of the interruption alone. It happened because the interruption touched something deeper. Maybe it reminded you of moments when you felt unheard earlier in life. Maybe it made you feel your thoughts were not valued. When you study moments like this, you begin to decode your emotional system. You learn what situations create tension and why. This awareness is the beginning of emotional mastery. There are people who get overwhelmed by criticism. Even mild suggestions make them feel attacked. The emotional spike appears fast. They feel a wave of defensiveness and their mood changes for the rest of the day. When they study this trigger, they may realize it connects to a past filled with strict judgment. Their mind learned to expect harshness even when none is present. Once they understand this, they can pause in the moment and remind themselves that not all feedback carries danger. This softens the emotional reaction and prevents it from controlling their actions. Some people feel sudden fear when plans change without warning. Their heart tightens and their thoughts scatter. They feel unsafe because unpredictability touches an old emotional wound. When they study this trigger, they find ways to create stability within themselves instead of depending on external order. This reduces emotional spikes because they no longer rely on the world to remain predictable. Studying your triggers is not about blaming yourself. It is about giving yourself the ability to respond from a place of clarity. When you understand your triggers, you gain the ability to slow the emotional rise before it grows too intense. You no longer feel trapped inside reactions you do not understand. You become aware of the patterns that control your mood. And once you see the pattern, you can change. There is a moment right before an emotional spike when your body sends a signal. Your stomach might tighten. Your breathing might become shallow. Your face might warm. These signals are early warnings. They tell you that something familiar is happening. Most people rush past these sensations, but someone who studies their triggers pays attention to them. The moment you feel the signal, you can pause. You can ask what is being touched inside you. This single moment of awareness can prevent the emotional spike from taking full control. Think about the moments when you feel disrespected. Sometimes the smallest gesture can create a strong reaction. When you study why this happens, you may discover that you value dignity deeply. Because of that, you react strongly when you feel it is threatened. Knowing this helps you protect your values without letting the emotional spike damage your interactions. You can address the situation calmly instead of snapping from raw emotion. Some triggers come from fear of losing control. When something feels uncertain, your emotions rise quickly. Studying this helps you understand that the spike is not about the situation itself, but about your relationship with control. When you learn to tolerate small uncertainties, you weaken the spike. You train your mind to see that not every change is a threat. There are triggers connected to relationships. A certain look from someone close to you may provoke sadness or anger. A certain phrase may create tension. When you study these triggers, you may uncover past disappointments or unresolved hurt. Understanding this helps you communicate more clearly. You no longer assume the worst. You no longer let old pain shape your present reactions. The emotional spike becomes smaller because you are no longer reacting to the past. Studying your triggers is an act of honesty. It requires you to notice moments when you lose balance and ask what created the shift. Many people avoid this because it feels uncomfortable to examine their inner world. But emotional strength grows from awareness. Without awareness, you repeat the same reaction. With awareness, you create new choices. Imagine someone who becomes impatient whenever they feel rushed. Their tone changes. Their attention narrows. Their emotional spike affects everyone around them. When they study this trigger, they may discover a deep need to feel prepared. When they acknowledge this need, they can adjust their habits. They can plan better. They can communicate when they need more time. The spike that once controlled them becomes smaller because they address the root instead of fighting the symptom. There are people who react strongly when they feel ignored. They might withdraw or lash out. When they study this trigger, they may find that it connects to old moments when they felt invisible. Recognizing this helps them communicate more directly. It helps them express what they need instead of letting the emotional spike take over. Understanding the root turns emotional chaos into emotional clarity. When you study your triggers consistently, something meaningful happens. You start seeing emotional spikes as information instead of problem. You begin to understand that every spike is trying to show you something about your inner world. Instead of fearing your reactions, you use them as guidance. This shift alone reduces emotional pressure. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are listening to yourself. Most emotional spikes do not come from the present moment. They come from memories, associations, and beliefs that have been carried for years. When you study these connections, you begin to separate the present from the past. You respond to what is happening now instead of what happened years ago. This separation gives you a sense of freedom that many people never experience. You also begin to anticipate situations that trigger you. You know which environments challenge your patience. You know which conversations awaken your insecurities. You know which behaviors from others unsettle you. This does not mean avoiding these situations. It means entering them with awareness. It means preparing your mind so you stay steady. Awareness removes the shock that often causes emotional spikes. You walk into the moment ready and grounded. As you grow more aware of your triggers, you also grow more compassionate toward yourself. You understand that your strong reactions had reasons. You were not weak. You were responding to something that felt real to you. This compassion itself reduces emotional tension. It builds a calmer relationship with your inner world. Over time, you become a person who notices emotional shifts early. You catch the pressure rising before it becomes unmanageable. You choose your next move with intention. You speak with more clarity. You handle challenges with more confidence. Emotional spikes no longer throw you off course because you know how to track their source. This level of awareness also improves your relationships. When you understand your triggers, you communicate more honestly. You explain your needs calmly. You avoid placing unfair expectations on others. You no longer react with confusion because you understand where your reactions come from. People around you feel safer communicating with you because you respond from reason instead of sudden emotion. Studying your triggers is a lifelong skill. The more you practice it, the lighter your emotional life feels. You reduce unnecessary tension. You prevent emotional spikes before they rise. You gain the ability to guide your reactions instead of being guided by them. You grow into someone who understands their own emotional landscape and moves through life with greater stability. Emotional strength comes from knowing what shakes you and learning how to respond with balance. When you study your triggers, you learn to protect your peace before it breaks. You learn to defend your stability before it slips. You learn to guide your emotions before they rush ahead of you. This is how emotional spikes lose their power. This is how emotional maturity grows. And this is how you build a life where your reactions no longer control your direction. Number 4, build inner strength by staying present now. Many people lose their strength not because life is too heavy, but because their mind is never in the moment they are living. They spend their days replaying yesterday or predicting tomorrow, and the present slips away. When the mind is scattered, the emotions become loud. When the attention drifts, the pressure grows. But when you stay present, you reclaim a power that most people never learn to use. Staying present is not about ignoring the past or avoiding the future. It is about building strength by giving your full attention to what is happening right now. This moment is where your choices are made. This moment is where your attitude is shaped. This moment is where your emotional stability grows. There is something steady about a person who can live in the now. They notice their surroundings. They hear their own thoughts with clarity. They listen to people without rushing to conclusions. They feel their emotions without being overwhelmed. Emotional strength does not grow in confusion. It grows in awareness. When you stay present, you give yourself the chance to understand what you are feeling instead of being dragged by it. You begin to see the truth of the moment instead of the story your mind might create. Many emotional struggles come from being stuck in moments that no longer exist. A past mistake lingers and becomes a weight. A past argument replays over and over until it fills your day with tension. When you bring your attention back to now, the weight lightens. You remind yourself that the moment that hurt you is gone. You remind yourself that you cannot change the past, but you can shape your response right now. This simple shift strengthens your sense of control. The present moment becomes a fresh space where you can think more clearly. Being present also protects you from the fear that arrives when you imagine the future in ways that overwhelm you. The mind loves to create scenarios that may never happen. It builds long chains of worry. It makes you feel unsafe, even when nothing is happening. When you return to now, you cut off the chain. You look at what is in front of you instead of what your imagination is building. You realize that you only need to deal with the step you are standing on. This gives you stability. It brings your emotions back to a manageable place. There is a calm power in paying attention to your breath. It anchors your mind without forcing anything. When you are present, your breath becomes steady. When your mind drifts, your breath becomes tight. Staying present helps you reset your body. It brings your awareness out of spiral thoughts and back into a grounded state. This is how inner strength is built, through simple moments of paying attention to what your body is telling you. Think about a conversation where you struggled to listen because your mind kept preparing your next response. You missed the meaning of the words. You missed the tone. You missed the emotion behind the other person's expression. When you learn to stay present, you listen with attention instead of haste. You give space for the moment. That presence helps you respond with understanding instead of reacting from impulse. Your relationships become stronger because people feel your attention. They feel seen and valued. This emotional connection lightens pressure for both sides. Staying present also teaches you patience. Many people feel stressed because they rush through life. They rush through meals. They rush through conversations. They rush through thought. This constant rushing keeps the nervous system in a tense state. When you slow down and focus on one thing at a time, your mind settles. You build a stronger emotional foundation. You train your mind to handle life without panic. There are moments when life feels overwhelming because too many thoughts pile up. You feel as if everything needs to be solved at once. But staying present breaks that illusion. You look at one task, one feeling, one choice. This reduces emotional spikes because you no longer treat every small thing as a crisis. You give your mind the chance to breathe. Strength grows when you learn to break big pressures into small moments of attention. Some people believe staying present means doing nothing. But staying present is active. It is paying attention to what is real. It is choosing to engage with the moment fully. It is noticing what you feel and guiding it. When you stay present, you sharpen your mind. You hear the quiet signals inside you that tell you when something is off. You sense when your emotions rise. You notice when tension builds. This awareness gives you the chance to adjust before the moment becomes too intense. For many people, the challenge is not that they do not want to stay present, but that they do not realize how often they leave the moment. They drift into habits. They let distractions control their focus. They lose connection with what they are doing. When you practice being present, you catch yourself drifting sooner. You bring yourself back gently. You reconnect with your task, with your breath, with your environment. This practice strengthens your mental discipline. Being present helps you understand your feelings more accurately. When you focus on what you are experiencing now, you remove guesses and assumptions. You feel the real emotion instead of the exaggerated version that grows when your mind jumps ahead. You may feel irritation that is mild, but if your mind leaves the moment and creates a story about the irritation, the feeling grows 10 times bigger. Staying present prevents this buildup. It keeps your emotions honest. As you build this skill, you begin to notice details that improve your life. You notice when you need rest. You notice when you are hungry. You notice when your thoughts begin to tighten. You notice when someone's words affect you. You gain the ability to act before the emotional weight grows heavy. This creates a sense of inner leadership. Your day no longer runs you. You run your day. Staying present also helps reduce mistakes that come from acting too fast. When you are distracted or overwhelmed, you make decisions without thinking them through. But when you remain present, you pause long enough to choose the direction that aligns with your values. This pause strengthens your ability to guide your behavior. It creates a level of maturity that shows in how you respond to challenges. There is a sense of peace that develops when you practice presence regularly. You stop fighting your thoughts. You stop forcing yourself to rush. You start trusting your ability to handle each moment as it comes. You build confidence because you no longer fear the next emotional wave. You know you can stay grounded. You know you can think clearly. You know you can respond with strength. Being present gives you access to emotional resilience. When you are here now, you do not carry old pain into new situations. You do not let fear of the future take away your courage. You deal with what is in front of you. You take responsibility for your actions. This builds self-respect. Emotional strength grows when you live in a way that aligns with your true values. Some people avoid the present because the present feels uncomfortable. They escape into distractions. They try to numb themselves. But every time you run from the moment, you weaken your inner strength. Strength comes from facing the moment directly. Even if the moment is difficult, you grow by staying with it. You learn from it. You understand yourself better. Each time you stay present, you build a stronger inner core. When your mind wanders into fear, you bring it back by naming what is happening right now. When your thoughts drift into regret, you bring them back by noticing what you are doing. These small acts build emotional discipline. They teach your mind to follow your direction. Over time, the emotional storms that once controlled you become less frequent and less intense. You begin to notice that staying present changes how you view your life. You stop feeling like a passenger. You feel like a participant. You stop moving through days on autopilot. You begin engaging with your goals, your relationships, and your inner world with real attention. This attention creates meaningful progress. It creates emotional stability. It creates a deep sense of personal strength. Staying present now is one of the most powerful ways to build inner strength.
because it trains your mind to work with you, not against you. It teaches you to respond instead of react. It teaches you to find clarity in moments where others feel lost. It teaches you to live with purpose instead of drifting. When you bring your mind into the moment, you bring your power into the moment. And when your power is here now, you become stronger than the emotional waves that once controlled your life.
Number 5. Shift emotional energy by choosing steady actions. Most people wait for their emotions to settle before taking action. They hope the frustration will fade on its own, or the sadness will lift, or the fear will loosen its grip. But emotional energy rarely moves by itself. It stays in place when you stay in place. It grows stronger when you sit in it for too long. The truth is that emotional energy shifts when you choose actions that guide it. Steady actions give your mind direction. Steady actions tell your emotions that you are leading the moment. This is how you build emotional stability. You do not wait for the feeling to change. You change your behavior so the feeling can follow. There are moments when your emotions feel heavier than your ability to process them. Your mind turns loud. Your body grows tense. You may feel stuck in a cycle of overthinking, or worry, or frustration. In these moments, your instinct might tell you to pause your life completely. But the mind becomes calmer when you give it something consistent to follow. Emotional energy needs structure. It needs movement. It needs signals that you are choosing the next step instead of letting the feeling decide for you. Consider a situation where stress rises in the morning, before the day even begins. If you stay still and think about everything that could go wrong, your emotional energy builds pressure. But when you choose one steady action like organizing your space, or taking a slow walk, or preparing something with intention, your emotional energy starts to shift. The action tells your mind that the day is not out of control. The action shows your emotions that they are not running the show. One small steady behavior can change how you feel, far more than hours of worrying. People often underestimate how much influence their daily patterns have on their emotional state. When you repeat unsteady habits, your emotions jump around in many directions. But when your actions follow a steady pattern, your emotional energy calms down. Something as simple as keeping a routine in the morning or setting a clear plan for the day helps your emotions feel supported. Emotional waves may still appear, but they do not dominate you because your actions keep the foundation solid. Think of a time when you felt overwhelmed by pressure at work or in your personal life. Maybe your mind felt scattered and everything demanded your attention at the same time. If you chose to sit in that tension, your emotional energy probably grew heavier. But if you picked one task and completed it, your emotions most likely shifted. You felt a small sense of control. You felt lighter. You felt direction returning. This is the power of steady action. It breaks emotional chaos by giving your mind something concrete to engage with. When you choose steady actions, you create emotional momentum. People forget that emotions respond to what you do, not just what you think. If you take a step in a healthy direction, your feelings will eventually adjust to that movement. If you choose to stay stuck, your emotions will remain stuck with you. Emotional strength is not built through perfect feeling. It is built through consistent actions taken even when your feelings are not in the best shape. There are moments when anger rises quickly. Your body tightens, and your thoughts speed up. If you feed this anger with reactive behavior, the emotional energy intensifies. But when you choose a steady action like stepping away for a moment, or speaking slowly, or grounding your breath, you redirect that energy. You teach your emotions that they do not control the moment. You are choosing stability instead of intensity. That choice reduces the spike and protects your clarity. Some people feel drained by sadness. It pulls their energy down and makes everything feel heavier. They often wait for the sadness to disappear before doing anything productive. But emotional heaviness lightens when you move your body with intention. A simple action such as cleaning your room, organizing your desk, or taking a brief walk gives your emotions a signal to shift. The sadness may not vanish instantly, but it loses the power to freeze you. Steady actions bring life back into moments that feel empty. Fear is another emotion that becomes louder when you remain still. When you avoid the thing that scares you, the fear grows.
But when you take one small, steady action toward the task, your emotional energy changes shape. You feel small waves of courage rising. You feel less controlled by the fear because you are moving despite it. This builds inner confidence. It shows your mind that fear is not a wall. It is only a feeling. And feelings can shift when you take action. Relationships also benefit from steady action. When misunderstandings happen, emotions rise on both sides. Many people wait for the perfect moment to talk or the perfect feeling to appear before addressing the issue. But steady action means choosing to communicate with calm intention even when emotions pull you away from clarity. You choose to listen. You choose to speak truthfully. You choose to stay grounded. This shifts the emotional energy in the relationship from tension to understanding. One of the most powerful forms of steady action is caring for your physical state. Your body influences your emotions more than most people realize. When you hydrate your body, your mind thinks better. When you sleep well, your emotions become easier to manage. When you move your body, your emotional weight lightens. These steady actions do not require strong feelings to begin. They require commitment, and commitment is a form of strength that emotional spikes cannot override. Another steady action that shifts emotional energy is setting clear boundaries. When someone crosses a line and you remain silent, your emotions carry the weight. But when you speak up calmly and clearly, your emotional state feels supported. You reduce the inner tension that comes from holding back your needs. This simple behavior prevents emotional buildup and teaches you to protect your mental space. Emotional energy becomes unpredictable when your day has no structure. But when you build small daily habits, your emotions feel more anchored. Something as simple as writing your thoughts each morning or reviewing your goals briefly can steady your focus. This steadiness affects your emotional rhythm. You feel less rushed, less overwhelmed, and more intentional. Emotional pressure decreases because your actions guide the day instead of your emotions running it by default. People often think emotional change happens inside the mind first. But for many, emotional shifts begin with what you do. When you clean your environment, your mind feels less cluttered. When you speak kindly to yourself, your emotions soften. When you follow through on something you promised yourself, you feel pride instead of frustration. These steady actions move emotional energy in a healthier direction long before your feelings catch up. There are also moments when your emotional energy feels chaotic because you have too many choices. When you reduce the choices and focus on one steady step, you feel relief. The emotional load shrinks because the decision becomes simpler. Steady action removes the unnecessary layers that emotional pressure builds. It quiets the noise in your mind so you can think with more confidence. Sometimes the action you choose needs to be slow. Slow actions like breathing deeply, or sitting quietly with your thoughts, or taking a short break can shift emotional tension in a powerful way. These actions give you space to reconnect with your inner strength. They show your emotions that you can create calm without waiting for life to calm down. This is one of the most valuable skills a person can learn. Steady actions also help you build trust with yourself. When you tell yourself you will do something and you follow through, you strengthen your self-respect. You reduce the emotional stress that comes from feeling inconsistent. You create a personal rhythm that your emotions eventually begin to follow. This is how emotional maturity grows, through daily actions that reflect your values, not your momentary feelings. Over time, you become the kind of person who moves with intention even when emotions fluctuate. You stop expecting your feelings to behave perfectly. You rely on your habits, your decisions, and your steady actions. This changes the way you experience emotional pressure. You no longer feel pushed around by feelings. You feel guided by your choices. The emotional energy that once overwhelmed you becomes manageable because your actions give it direction. When you learn to shift emotional energy through steady actions, you gain a level of control that transforms your life. You respond with strength instead of reacting from confusion. You take steps that elevate you instead of remaining stuck in emotional patterns. You create momentum that carries you forward even on difficult days. You build a foundation of stability that no emotional spike can shake. This is how real emotional power grows, not from waiting for perfect feelings, but from choosing steady actions that shape who you become.
Number 6. Calm intense feelings by controlling your pace. Intense feelings often rise because a person moves through life faster than their emotions can keep up. The mind jumps ahead, the body tenses, and the heart feels pressured. When you rush through tasks, conversations, or decisions, your emotions respond with urgency. The pace you choose shapes the strength of your feelings. When everything in your day feels hurried, your emotions follow that same speed. They grow louder, faster, and heavier. But when you slow down and guide your pace intentionally, your emotional state shifts. You gain clarity. You reduce pressure. You create space to think clearly. Controlling your pace is a powerful way to calm intense feelings, because it brings your mind back to a rhythm it can handle. Many people live in a constant state of hurry without realizing it. They wake up and rush into the day. They speak quickly. They make decisions quickly. They move from one thing to another without allowing their mind to breathe. This fast pace becomes the normal speed of their emotion. When something unexpected happens, their emotional reaction spikes, because the mind has no buffer. But someone who learns to control their pace gives themselves room to process life as it unfolds. They do not drown in emotional waves, because they do not ride through each moment at the highest speed. There is strength in slowing down the moment when your emotions begin to rise. Think about a situation where frustration starts building. You feel your breath shorten, your muscles tighten, and your thoughts speed up. If you continue at that pace, your emotions will escalate quickly. But when you choose to slow your movements, slow your breathing, and slow your response, your emotional intensity decreases. The feeling that once felt overwhelming becomes something you can manage. Controlling the pace gives you authority over the moment. People often try to calm their emotions by forcing themselves to think positively, or by telling themselves to just relax. But the mind cannot relax when the body's pace is still moving fast. Emotional calm begins when you change the speed of your action. Something simple like pausing before speaking, or taking a slower step, or focusing on one task at a time, signals your mind to settle. Emotional intensity does not come from the feeling alone. It comes from the pace surrounding the feeling. When the pace slows, the pressure eases. Think of a moment when someone rushed you during a task and your emotions spiked. You felt irritated or anxious because your mind did not have time to adjust. When you control your pace, you take back that time. You do not allow pressure from others to dictate your emotional state. You stay centered because you decide how fast you will move. Not the situation, not the people around you, and not the fear inside you. This steady control creates emotional stability. Many emotional spikes happen when people try to do too many things at once. Multitasking increases mental tension and emotional weight. When your attention is scattered, your feelings become scattered too. But when you slow down and focus on one thing, your mind becomes quieter. Emotional noise decreases. You feel more grounded. Controlling your pace is not about doing less. It is about doing with intention. This intention protects your emotional energy. Consider moments when anger rises. People often respond quickly when they are angry, and that speed makes the reaction more intense. But when you slow your response and give yourself a few seconds, you calm the emotional charge. You see the situation with more clarity. You prevent regret. Anger loses its grip when the pace of your reaction slows down. This practice gives you a new kind of strength, the kind that does not show up in loud reactions, but in steady control. Fear also grows when the pace of your thoughts increases. Your mind jumps from one fear to another, creating a chain of imagined problems. When you slow your pace, you break that chain. You bring your attention back to what is happening now. Instead of racing through possibilities, you breathe deeper. You think clearer. Slowing your pace reminds your body that you are safe. And when your body feels safe, your emotions calm down. People often believe emotional calm comes from removing the problem. But emotional calm comes from controlling your pace while facing the problem. When you slow down, you give yourself permission to approach the situation in steps, instead of facing it all at once. This reduces emotional intensity and builds confidence. You start to see that you can handle more than you thought, because you are no longer drowning in a rush of feelings. Relationships benefit deeply from controlled pace. Many arguments escalate because both people respond too fast. They talk over each other. They defend
instead of listening. They react instead of understanding. When you slow the pace of the conversation, you create space for real communication. You hear the other person. You understand their meaning. You speak with clarity. Emotional spikes decrease because the moment is no longer fueled by speed. It is guided by patience. There are times when your own expectations cause you to move too fast. You put pressure on yourself to achieve quickly, to respond perfectly, or to meet unrealistic standards. This pressure intensifies emotions because you never feel caught up. When you control your pace, you replace pressure with progress. You take one step at a time. You reduce emotional load by removing unnecessary urgency. This steady movement builds emotional stamina and reduces overwhelm. Controlling your pace also means learning when to pause. A pause is not weakness, it is a strategy. When emotions rise, a short pause can prevent hours of stress. A pause can stop an argument from growing. A pause can help you think before reacting. A pause can remind you that you have choices. Emotional strength is not the absence of feeling, it is the ability to direct your actions, even when feelings are intense. A pause gives you that direction. Another form of pace control involves creating boundaries around your time and energy. When you say yes to everything, your schedule becomes overcrowded, and your emotions rise with the pressure. When you learn to say no with clarity, you control the speed of your life. You give yourself space to rest. You avoid emotional spikes that come from overload. This boundary is an essential part of emotional calm because it prevents your pace from being dictated by external demands. Even your internal dialogue has a pace. When your thoughts race, your emotions race with them. When your thoughts slow down, your emotions settle. You can calm your inner dialogue by speaking to yourself in a steady tone. Instead of saying, "I have to fix this right now," you can say, "I will handle this step by step." Instead of saying, "Everything is falling apart," you can say, "I will deal with what is in front of me." Your emotions respond to the pace of your thoughts. Your environment also influences your pace. A cluttered space increases your mental speed because your attention jumps from one thing to another. A clean environment slows your mind because it provides visual calm. When you choose to organize your surroundings, you indirectly calm your emotions. This is another way pace and emotional intensity are connected. Some people move through their day without noticing how rushed they feel. They eat fast, they walk fast, they talk fast. Their emotions absorb this speed. When you practice slowing everyday actions, you create a calmer emotional baseline. Taking time to enjoy a meal, taking a slower walk, or speaking more deliberately teaches your mind to stay steady. Emotional spikes become less frequent because your internal rhythm becomes smoother. As you gain control over your pace, you begin to notice early signs of emotional buildup. You sense tension sooner. You notice when your breathing changes. You recognize when your thoughts start rushing. Because you are more aware, you can adjust your pace before the emotional spike grows. This awareness gives you control that many people never develop. It allows you to guide your emotional state instead of being overwhelmed by it. Over time, controlling your pace becomes a habit that transforms your life. You feel more centered throughout the day. You make decisions with more confidence. You communicate more effectively. You handle stress with resilience. Your emotions no longer dictate the speed of your life. You decide the rhythm. Emotional calm becomes a natural state because your pace supports it. When you calm intense feelings by controlling your pace, you discover that emotional stability is not found in trying to eliminate feelings. It is found in guiding the speed of your actions and thought. You learn to slow down when emotions rise. You learn to steady your movements when pressure builds. You learn to breathe with intention. This simple practice becomes a source of strength that supports every part of your life. Emotional balance grows from the rhythm you choose and the pace you control.
Number 7. Reset emotional tension by focusing on reality. Emotional tension builds when the mind drifts away from what is real and begins to create its own version of events. A small problem becomes a disaster in your imagination. A simple silence becomes a sign that something is wrong. A temporary setback becomes a belief that your whole life is falling apart. This mental drift creates emotional pressure that has nothing to do with what is actually happening. When your emotions become heavy, the first step toward relief is bringing your attention back to reality. Reality is steady. Reality is clear. Reality gives you a place to stand. Emotional tension loses its strength when you return to what is true in the present moment. Many people do not realize how often their emotions are shaped by thoughts that are not grounded in facts. A person might feel anxious because they expect something bad to happen even though nothing has happened yet. Another person might feel ashamed because they assume others are judging them even though no one has said a word. The mind is powerful and it can create pressure all by itself. When you focus on reality, you break that cycle. You separate what is real from what is imagined. This separation brings your emotions back to a manageable level. There are moments when you feel overwhelmed, not because the situation is too hard, but because your mind adds layers to it. You might tell yourself it always goes this way, or nothing ever works out, or I cannot handle this. These thoughts feel true in the moment, but they are not reality. They are emotional reactions disguised as fact. When you slow down and look at what is actually happening, you begin to see the gap between your feelings and the truth. This clarity helps you reset the emotional tension that has been building inside you. Think about times when you worried for hours about something that turned out small or harmless. The emotional tension felt real, but the situation did not justify the intensity. When you shift your focus to what is real right now, you prevent your mind from expanding the problem. You remind yourself that only the present moment matters. The imagined future is not happening. The exaggerated fear is not happening. The mental story is not happening. What is real is the ground you are standing on, the actions you can take, and the truth of the situation in front of you. Focusing on reality also helps you avoid emotional reactions based on assumptions. Many conflicts begin because someone assumes the worst. They assume the other person meant something negative. They assume they were criticized. They assume they were excluded. These assumptions create emotional tension that grows until the relationship becomes strained. When you return to reality, you ask yourself what actually happened. Did someone say something clearly, or did you fill in the meaning yourself? Did the person act with intention, or did you read into their behavior? This simple check prevents unnecessary emotional explosions and brings peace back into the moment. Another important part of focusing on reality is noticing what your body is doing. Emotional tension feels physical. Your shoulders tighten, your throat feels heavy, your mind becomes cloudy. But the body reacts not only to real situations, but also to imagined ones. When you redirect your attention to reality, you can calm your physical response. You breathe deeper. You relax your muscles. You feel more grounded. This physical grounding resets your emotional state because the body and mind communicate constantly. Some people carry emotional tension because they hold on to old stories. A past disappointment becomes a permanent belief. A painful memory becomes the lens through which they view current situations. But the past is not reality anymore. It shaped you, but it does not define what is happening now. By focusing on reality, you remind yourself that today is not yesterday. You remind yourself that the moment in front of you deserves a fresh response. This breaks the emotional grip that old experiences try to hold over you. There are also moments when emotions rise because expectations were not met. Maybe you expected someone to behave a certain way. Maybe you expected your day to unfold without challenges. Maybe you expected yourself to be perfect. When these expectations crash into reality, the emotional spike appears. But when you return to what is real rather than what you expected, reality becomes easier to accept. You adjust your mindset. You release the tension. You see the situation for what it is instead of what you wanted it to be. Focusing on reality also strengthens your decision-making. Emotional tension often comes from confusion. When your imagination mixes with truth, you do not know what to respond to. But when you strip away the imagined fears and exaggerated thoughts, you can see the real problem clearly. Reality gives you direction. Emotional tension fades because you are no longer reacting to shadows. You are responding to something real and manageable. One powerful way to focus on reality is to observe what you can control right now. Emotional tension grows when you try to fix things that are not in your hands. You may worry about others' opinions or future outcomes or problems that have not arrived. But when you return your attention to what you can control now, the rest loses its power. You feel steady again because your energy returns to something you can influence. This shift alone can reset even the heaviest emotional tension. Sometimes emotional pressure builds because you judge yourself too harshly.
Your mind tells you that you are failing or falling behind or disappointing others. But when you look at the real facts, you often discover you are doing far better than your thoughts suggest. Reality shows progress your mind refuses to acknowledge. Focusing on reality reminds you that your feelings are temporary, but your efforts are real. This helps you release emotional pressure that comes from internal criticism. When anxiety takes over, it usually comes from imagining negative outcomes. The mind plays out scenes that may never happen. The emotional tension becomes intense because the mind treats the imagined danger as real. But when you shift your attention to the facts in front of you, the anxiety loosens. You realize there is no danger in the moment. You realize your breathing is still steady, your surroundings are safe, and your thoughts are the only thing creating tension. This recognition is the beginning of emotional relief. Being present with reality also helps you recognize opportunities you would have missed while stuck in emotional spirals. When you are trapped in exaggerated thoughts, you overlook solutions. You overlook support. You overlook simple choices that could ease your stress. But when your mind returns to reality, you see clearly again. Emotional tension resets because you are no longer blinded by mental noise. Another powerful benefit of focusing on reality is that it strengthens your confidence. When you stop reacting to imagined threats, you begin to trust your ability to face real challenges. You see that most situations can be handled one step at a time. You see that your emotions are not always accurate guides. You see that you can live with more stability when your attention stays grounded. This confidence reduces emotional tension because uncertainty becomes less frightening. The more you practice returning to reality, the faster your emotional resets become. You recognize when your thoughts drift. You catch yourself adding meaning that is not there. You notice when your emotions rise without justification. With each correction, your emotional balance grows stronger. You stop spiraling into fear. You stop drowning in assumptions. You stop carrying pressure that does not belong to you. Over time, you become a person who faces life with clarity. Your emotions respond to truth instead of imagination. Your reactions come from understanding instead of confusion. You build inner peace because you refuse to fuel tension with mental stories. Reality becomes your anchor. Your emotions become lighter because they flow from facts, not fear. And your life becomes calmer because you have learned how to reset emotional tension by returning again and again to what is real.
Number 8. Strengthen emotional mastery through intentional daily habits. Emotional mastery does not appear in one moment of strength. It grows through small choices repeated each day. Many people believe they need one big breakthrough to gain control of their emotions. But real mastery comes from intentional habits that train the mind to stay balanced. Daily habits shape how you respond to stress, how you manage pressure, and how you guide your emotional state. When life becomes difficult, your emotions follow the patterns you create. When your habits are steady, your inner world becomes steady. When your habits are chaotic, your emotions become chaotic. Intentional habits build emotional reliability and give you the strength to handle moments that once overwhelmed you. One of the most powerful habits is taking a few minutes each morning to center your mind before the day begins. When you start your day without direction, your emotions take the lead, and the smallest interruption can throw you off balance. But when you begin with calm intention, you set the tone. You remind yourself that you guide your day instead of letting your emotions push you in every direction. This habit shapes your emotional stability because your mind enters the day with clarity instead of confusion. Another important habit is noticing your thoughts throughout the day. Many emotional reactions build because people go hours without checking in with themselves. They let tension pile up. They ignore the small signals until they turn into emotional spikes. But someone who practices emotional mastery pays attention to these signals early. They ask how they are feeling. They ask what is creating pressure. They ask what adjustment they need. This daily awareness prevents emotional overload. It helps you correct your direction before your emotions become too strong to manage easily. A habit that strengthens emotional mastery is choosing your responses intentionally. When someone speaks to you with impatience or pressure, it is easy to mirror their tone, but daily mastery means pausing before reacting. It means choosing a calmer tone even when the moment invites tension. This habit teaches your emotions that they do not have to match the atmosphere around you. You learn to create your own emotional environment. Over time, this builds confidence in your ability to stay steady in conversations and conflicts. Another valuable habit is creating space in your day to breathe deeply and reset your state. Even a short pause to slow your breathing can shift your entire emotional rhythm. Many people move through the day with tight shoulders and shallow breaths without realizing it. This physical tension fuels emotional tension. When you build a habit of pausing, you remind your body to relax. A relaxed body helps create a calm mind, and a calm mind makes emotional mastery easier. Intentional daily habits also involve setting boundaries with your time and energy. Emotional overwhelm often comes from trying to do too much or giving too much access to people who drain your peace. When you create a habit of saying no to things that do not support your well-being, you protect your emotional balance. You avoid the exhaustion that makes emotions harder to control. You give yourself the space you need to stay centered. Boundaries are not just for relationships, they are for your emotional health. Another habit that supports emotional mastery is reflecting at the end of each day. Many people fall asleep with unresolved tension because they never review what affected them. A short reflection helps you understand what triggered you, what patterns repeated, and what choices helped you stay steady. This awareness builds emotional growth. It teaches you to adjust your habits instead of repeating the same emotional reactions tomorrow. Each reflection becomes a small lesson that contributes to your mastery. A consistent physical practice can also strengthen emotional stability. Moving your body daily releases emotional buildup. Physical movement helps regulate your mood and clears mental fog. It does not have to be intense. It can be a walk, stretching, or a short routine. The key is consistency. When your body feels strong and supported, your emotions feel easier to manage. Another habit that builds mastery is simplifying your environment. A cluttered room creates a cluttered mind. When you intentionally keep your space clean and organized, you reduce mental noise. This quietness helps your emotions settle because your mind is not overwhelmed by visual distraction. A clear environment supports a clear emotional state. Intentional habits also include choosing the kind of content you allow into your mind. Many people feed their emotions with constant negativity through the news, social media, or chaotic conversations. This builds emotional tension without them realizing it. When you make a habit of limiting negative input and filling your mind with constructive content, your emotional state becomes more positive and balanced. What you consume mentally influences how you feel emotionally. Practicing gratitude daily is another habit that strengthens emotional mastery. It shifts your attention away from what is missing and highlights what is working. Gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about training your mind to notice the good, so your emotions are not dominated by fear or frustration. This intentional shift creates emotional resilience because gratitude softens the edges of difficult moments. Building emotional mastery also requires a habit of honest communication. When you express your needs clearly, you avoid the emotional pressure that comes from hiding your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it is not. Daily honesty reduces internal conflict. It prevents emotional buildup. It strengthens your relationships because you show up with truth instead of tension. Each honest conversation becomes a step toward greater mastery. Another helpful habit is creating intentional routines that support your mental rhythm. A structured morning routine, a consistent time for reflection, or a nightly wind-down practice gives your emotions a sense of predictability. When your daily life has structure, your emotions do not spiral as easily. They rest in the stability you create. Intentional habits also include choosing small acts of discipline. Emotional mastery does not require extreme discipline, but it does require daily follow-through. Completing tasks you promise yourself builds trust in your own word. When you trust yourself emotionally, you feel stronger, you worry less, you feel more capable. Each small act of discipline becomes part of a foundation that supports your emotional growth. Another way daily habits build mastery is by helping you catch emotional patterns early. When you repeat certain actions each day, you begin to see what disrupts your rhythm. You see who drains your peace. You see which activities exhaust your mind. This awareness allows you to adjust your habits so your emotions remain stable. You become more intentional with where you place your time and attention. Practicing self-respect daily is also essential. Emotional mastery is difficult when you constantly criticize yourself or treat yourself harshly. When you build a habit of speaking to yourself with clarity, fairness, and encouragement, your emotions soften. You begin to support your own progress
instead of tearing yourself down. Self-respect strengthens your emotional foundation and helps you handle setbacks with maturity. Some daily habits help you develop greater patience. When you slow down simple routines like eating, walking, or talking, you train your mind to stay steady. This patience carries into emotionally charged moments. You respond more thoughtfully, you stay grounded even when others are not. This quiet strength builds mastery because it prevents emotional spikes from controlling your behavior. Over time, your intentional habits accumulate. They become a system that supports your emotional life. You no longer rely on random motivation or brief moments of clarity. You rely on daily choices that build consistency. Emotional mastery grows not from perfection, but from commitment. Each habit strengthens your mind. Each habit reduces emotional chaos. Each habit teaches your emotions to follow your leadership. As you continue building these habits, you transform into someone who does not collapse under emotional pressure. You become steady even when the day is challenging. You stay centered even when your feelings fluctuate. You feel more confident because you know your habits will support you. Emotional mastery becomes a natural part of your life because your daily actions create the internal stability you once lacked. Intentional habits give you the tools to guide your emotions instead of being guided by them. They build a foundation that keeps you grounded in the present. They help you face challenges with maturity. They show you that emotional strength is built day by day through choices that shape your inner world. When your habits are intentional, your emotions become manageable, and your life becomes more peaceful, purposeful, and balanced.
Number 9. Stop emotional spirals by questioning your fears. Fear has a way of growing faster than any other emotion. It starts as a small concern, then expands into a long chain of imagined outcomes. Before you even realize it, the fear becomes a story you repeat to yourself until it feels real. This is how emotional spirals begin. The mind creates possibilities that are heavier and darker than the situation itself. The fear takes over your thoughts, your breathing, your decisions, and even your confidence. But emotional spirals can be stopped when you question those fears instead of accepting them as truth. The moment you challenge fear with clear thinking, the spiral slows. When you question it directly, it loses its power to control you. Fear often whispers quietly at first. A thought appears saying, "What if this goes wrong?" Or "What if they do not like me?" Or "What if I fail?" The mind reacts instantly. It begins filling in the blanks. It adds details to a scenario that has not happened. It builds images that come from insecurity rather than fact. This mental activity creates tension even when nothing in reality has changed. Questioning your fears pulls you out of this mental maze. When you ask whether the fear is based on truth or assumption, you interrupt the spiral. You remind yourself that fear is a feeling, not a prediction. Many people never stop to question their fears because the emotion feels convincing. Fear feels urgent. It feels loud. It makes you believe you must react quickly or prepare for the worst. But fear is often an exaggeration created by the mind trying to protect you. When you question it, you separate the feeling from the facts. You begin to see that many fears are not warnings. They are guesses, and guesses do not deserve to control your emotional state. There are moments when fear appears because you are stepping into something new, a new job, a new relationship, a new responsibility. The fear says you are not ready, or you will fail, or you will disappoint others. But when you question that fear, you ask yourself whether it is based on evidence or insecurity. Most of the time, the fear is based on a belief you never examined. When you question it honestly, you find that you are more capable than your fear suggests. This realization weakens the emotional spiral and brings your confidence back. Another common fear is the fear of judgment. People imagine others thinking negatively about them. They create an entire narrative of what others might say or assume. This creates a heavy emotional spiral that affects behavior. You become tense. You hesitate. You shrink. But when you question this fear by asking, "What proof do I have, or is this something I am creating in my mind?" the spiral loosens. You recognize that the imagined judgment is not happening. You begin to move with more freedom because you stop living through the eyes of a fear that has no real foundation. Fear also grows when you expect yourself to be perfect. You fear mistakes because you believe they will define you. You fear disappointment
because you think it means failure. This creates emotional spirals around simple tasks. You overthink every step. You worry about every detail. But when you question the fear, you ask, what truly happens? If I am not perfect? Or who told me that mistakes erase my worth? These questions break the unrealistic standards that fuel the fear. The emotional pressure fades because you stop holding yourself to impossible expectations. Some fears come from past experiences. A past hurt creates a belief that similar situations will end the same way. You begin to fear connection, fear risk, fear vulnerability, because the memory stays active in your mind. When you question this fear, you ask whether the past is actually repeating itself, or whether you are projecting old pain onto new experiences. This helps you reset your emotional state. It reminds you that the past is not a prediction, it is only a lesson. The emotional spiral loses its grip because you stop confusing history with destiny. Another powerful fear is the fear of uncertainty. Not knowing what will happen can create a long chain of anxious thought. You imagine worst-case outcomes without realizing your mind is skipping over realistic possibilities. When you question this fear, you ask, what is actually happening right now? And what can I control in this moment? This pulls your mind out of the imagined future and brings it back to reality. Emotional spirals weaken because you place your attention where you have influence, instead of worrying about situations that may never come. Emotional spirals often grow in isolation. When you keep your fears to yourself, they sound louder, they grow unchecked. But when you question them, you gain perspective. You begin to break them into smaller pieces. Instead of letting them overwhelm you, you ask whether the fear is logical, whether it is helpful, whether it is protecting you or holding you back. These questions create space between you and the fear. That space gives you the strength to respond with clarity. Another way to stop emotional spirals is by examining the consequences your fear predicts. Many fears present an extreme outcome that is unlikely to occur. When you question the fear directly by asking how likely is this truly or what evidence supports this, your emotional intensity decreases. You realize that most fears exaggerate reality. This shift in thinking cools the emotional pressure and grounds your mind. There are also fears that show up as self-doubt. You fear that you are not good enough. You fear that others will see your weaknesses. You fear that you cannot handle future responsibilities. But when you question this fear, you ask, what strengths do I already have? Or what successes have I ignored? Or why do I assume I am less capable than I truly am? These questions bring balance. They remind you that fear hides your strengths, but questioning your fear brings them back into view. Emotional spirals shrink because your self-perception becomes more accurate. Questioning your fears helps you regain control of your emotional reactions. Instead of letting fear push you into panic, you step back and think. Emotional mastery becomes possible because you are no longer reacting blindly. You are engaging your mind. You are slowing the process. You are understanding the source of your fear instead of surrendering to it. When you make this a daily habit, you begin to notice fears earlier. You catch the first thought before it becomes a spiral. You recognize the physical signs of fear faster. You sense when your mind is beginning to imagine problems that do not exist. This early awareness gives you the power to question the fear before it grows stronger. You do not let it take over. You guide it with reason. Over time, questioning your fears builds confidence. You stop being intimidated by your own emotions. You see that fear is not a barrier but a signal. You learn to respond instead of react. You learn to stay steady even when the future feels uncertain. You learn to trust yourself because you no longer let fear control your direction. When you stop emotional spirals by questioning your fears, you build a life with more freedom. You make decisions based on truth, not anxiety. You move forward with courage instead of hesitation. You grow stronger because you no longer let fear shape your thinking. You guide your mind instead of being guided by your fears. This practice turns fear from an enemy into a tool. It shows you where you need clarity. It shows you where you need confidence. It shows you where your mind creates stories instead of facts. And when you question those stories, your emotions calm down. Your thoughts become clearer. Your life becomes easier to navigate. Emotional spirals lose their power because your mind is no longer controlled by imagined threat. You reclaim your voice, your strength, and your peace by questioning the fears that once held you back.
Number 10, gain emotional freedom by practicing mental clarity. Emotional freedom begins when your mind becomes clear enough to see what is real, what matters, and what deserves your energy. Many people feel trapped by their own emotions, not because the emotions are too strong, but because their mind is too cluttered to guide them. Mental fog creates confusion. Confusion creates emotional pressure. Begin reacting to assumptions instead of facts. You respond to old thoughts instead of the moment in front of you. When your mind is not clear, everything feels heavier than it should. Practicing mental clarity gives you a way out of that weight. It helps you organize your thoughts so your emotions no longer pull you in 10 different directions. Clarity becomes the space where emotional freedom can grow. Mental clarity starts with understanding what you are actually feeling instead of getting lost in the noise around it. Many emotional lows begin with a mix of unrelated thoughts stacking on top of one another. A small stress gets tangled with an unrelated memory. A mild worry gets tied to an older fear. Before long, it feels like a storm. But when you slow down and separate each thought, you start to see what belongs to the moment and what does not. This separation gives you a sense of control. You are no longer dealing with an emotional storm. You are dealing with one thought at a time. This alone creates relief. One way mental clarity builds emotional freedom is by helping you question the thoughts that create stress. Many thoughts feel true simply because they repeat often. The mind sticks to certain patterns out of habit. You may tell yourself you are not improving, or that problems last longer for you, or that other people have it easier. These thoughts weaken your emotional foundation even when they are not accurate. When you practice mental clarity, you examine each thought instead of accepting it blindly. You ask whether the thought is useful or harmful, whether it is based on facts or on fear. This questioning dismantles emotional pressure and frees you from beliefs that once controlled your behavior. Mental clarity also grows when you reduce mental clutter. Your mind can only hold so much before it begins to overflow. Constant notifications, unfinished tasks, hidden worries, and unspoken frustrations all add weight. When you clear space in your mind by organizing your responsibilities, writing things down, or resolving things you have been avoiding, your emotional state stabilizes. You feel lighter because your mind is no longer carrying everything at once. Emotional freedom often comes from removing mental overload rather than fighting the emotions directly. A mind filled with distractions cannot guide emotions well. When you practice mental clarity, you learn to focus on one thing at a time. This reduces emotional confusion because your attention is no longer scattered. You respond with purpose instead of reaction. You choose your tone instead of letting frustration choose it for you. You become aware of how your thoughts influence your feelings, and how your feelings influence your choices. This awareness gives you strength. Emotional freedom grows when your actions follow clarity instead of habit. Another part of mental clarity involves being honest about what is truly bothering you. Many people react to surface issues while ignoring the deeper cause. You may feel irritated with someone, but the truth is, you are overwhelmed. You may feel sad about a conversation, but the real issue is exhaustion. Mental clarity invites you to look deeper. When you name the true source of the feeling, the emotion becomes easier to manage. You stop fighting the wrong battle. You begin addressing what actually needs your attention. This honesty gives your emotions room to soften. Practicing mental clarity also means recognizing which thoughts are yours and which thoughts come from outside pressure. You may carry expectations from family, society, or people around you without noticing it. These expectations create emotional tension. When you practice clarity, you identify which expectations belong to others and which ones align with your values. Separating these influences helps you create emotional freedom because you no longer live under pressure that does not belong to you. You choose your own standards instead of being shaped by noise. Stress often grows because the mind jumps too far ahead. You imagine problems before they exist. You picture outcomes that drain you. When the mind lives too much in the future, your emotions respond with fear or anxiety. Practicing mental clarity means returning your attention to the present. You focus on what you can do right now,
instead of trying to prepare for every possible scenario. This shift calms your emotional state because the present moment is always simpler than the imagined future. Emotional freedom opens up when you stop carrying problems that have not arrived. Clarity also improves your emotional strength by helping you prioritize. Without clarity, everything feels urgent. Everything feels equally important. This creates emotional overwhelm because you cannot tell where to begin. When you practice clarity, you choose what matters most in this moment. You stop trying to solve your entire life in one day. You break things into steps. This reduces emotional pressure because you are no longer drowning in a long list of worries. Emotional freedom grows when you allow yourself to focus on the next step instead of the whole journey. Another way mental clarity supports emotional freedom is by helping you recognize when your mind is exaggerating. Many emotional spirals come from the mind making situations bigger than they are. A simple comment becomes a personal attack. A delay becomes failure. A mistake becomes a disaster. When you practice clarity, you learn to scale your thoughts back to reality. You see the difference between an inconvenience and a crisis. You see the difference between a setback and a collapse. This accurate view of reality keeps your emotions steady. Practicing mental clarity also teaches you to pause before responding. A pause gives your mind time to gather itself. It prevents emotional reactions that come from confusion. It protects your relationships. It protects your self-respect. This pause becomes a habit that strengthens your emotional stability because it keeps you from speaking or acting from the wrong state of mind. Emotional freedom grows in these pauses because you give yourself the chance to choose instead of reacting automatically. Mental clarity is not about emptying your mind. It is about organizing it. It is about giving your thoughts structure instead of letting them scatter. When your thoughts are organized, your emotions follow that order. You feel more stable because your inner world is not chaotic. You think more clearly. You speak more confidently. You make decisions with less hesitation. Emotional freedom grows naturally because the mind feels safe and supported. Another important part of mental clarity is self-observation. When you observe your mind without judgment, you begin to understand your emotional triggers, your patterns, and your strengths. You learn when your mind drifts into fear. You learn when your thoughts become harsh. You learn when you create stories that do not match reality. This observation gives you the power to correct yourself with kindness instead of criticism. Emotional freedom grows when you treat yourself with understanding instead of blame. Mental clarity also requires rest. A tired mind cannot think clearly, and an unclear mind cannot manage emotions well. When you make rest a priority, your emotional state becomes more stable. You recover faster from stress. You process emotions with more maturity. You stop reacting from exhaustion. This simple commitment to rest becomes one of the strongest habits in emotional freedom because it strengthens your clarity. Over time, practicing mental clarity changes the way you experience life. You stop carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you. You stop letting fear shape your decisions. You stop letting small problems turn into emotional storms. You understand yourself better. You see situations more accurately. You regain control of your inner world. Emotional freedom becomes possible because your mind is no longer working against you. It is working with you. When mental clarity becomes a daily practice, you build a life where emotions can move freely without overwhelming you. You respond with intention instead of confusion. You think with purpose instead of panic. You live with balance instead of emotional chaos. The more you practice it, the stronger your emotional stability becomes. Clarity becomes your foundation, freedom becomes your experience, and your emotions become something you lead instead of something you fear.